Uh-oh, you got the mask on. You haven't got sick, have you?
It's gonna be like this till November.
See Bruce back out there. How's it having him here? What are you hoping to get at?
Great having him back. Great personality. Brings a lot of juice and energy. Veteran experience. Somebody can continue to help out the young guys. One of the added benefits, obviously, he was in, what's up, Reek? He was in Chicago last year, so he had a little bit of an early introduction to the system, so not everything's going to be foreign to him, but it's awesome having him back and again, the veteran experience for the other edge players.
Is there anything drastically different from what he did in the past when he was here that he'll be asked to do in this defensive scheme?
No, not really. There's a lot of carryover. Some of the terms and terminology or how it's detailed, it may sound different, but it's very similar, like just likes, things of that nature. So there's a lot of carryover from previous system to the one that we're currently in.
What's unique about his energy? Those of us who know him.
Passionate. I mean, even though he might be in his 30s and has played a lot of football, you can never tell. He's like a young guy out here running around, still bursty, still twitchy, loves the game, loves to joke and have fun with all of his teammates. But on the other side of it, they see how serious he is about his craft too. So that's a huge plus.
He came into the league, of course, as a pass rusher, known as that. What is he for every down for you, for this defense, what he was even before?
He really developed himself as an all-around player. That was his reputation when he came out of West Virginia, obviously because of speed and length and suddenness and whatnot. But he really became like a really good edge setter. Physical at the point of contact, could set edges. Obviously, if somebody as athletic as he is and the ability to bend and play in space, your ideal kind of outside backer, whether you're playing 4-3 or 3-4, traditional Sam. So he was able to, his game grew and developed where he became a really good all-around football player.
How did you assess the Saints game, just kind of looking back at it?
There's, again, it felt similar in some ways the previous week. There's a lot of good things that you feel good about in the strides that were made. Pleased with Jordan Brooks and Cody. They really, in my opinion, took some steps forward in that football game. And obviously some plays they still want to take back, but you see the strides being made. To still see the development of our young guys, obviously Tariq Woolen, not just the pick play, the interception that he got, but there's other clips in there of him like pressing at the line of scrimmage and playing with great arm, his hands and arm length and being physical and whatnot. To see him continue to come along. Kobe Bryant, again, still continuing to show, and again with Mafe. So the development of the young guys, those things still coming along. We still have our guys who are still getting comfortable in what they're doing. Through all those things, are still growing and learning, but there is positive that you see, but we're not anywhere close, obviously, where we want to be. We understand that. Everybody's aware of that. So the growth is still continuing.
What do you make of the fact that tackling still looks like an issue?
There was it took a step back, not quite as good. We had a couple more from the previous week against Detroit. We were in the single digits in the Detroit game. This game we were back in the doubles. I want to say it went from like 8 to 11 or 8 to 12. I think what happens is this, like there's going to be some of those during the course of a football game, but the ones that we're missing are critical ones. They're leading to explosive plays, and the explosive plays are leading to points. So they stand out even more than what is typical in the normal fashion. Those are the ones that hurt, and obviously you get really, really frustrated by. So again, continue to work on. Obviously, when there's times to make changes personnel-wise, because things aren't happening the way that we want to and the expectation of, then you do those things when they're necessary.
I know you don't want to miss any, but what number can you live with for a minute?
We always want to stay in single digits, and ideally like 5 or less. Is where you want to be. There's going to happen in this game. It's the teams now. It's a space football game. The realistic thought of having 0 missed tackles or 1 or 2, as great as that may sound, it's really rare. Really rare. I'd love to see some of the numbers. I know PFF does a lot of that stuff. I think a lot of that is subject as well, but to see where it is. But ideally, you don't want to have any. But if we say 5 or less, we're in a great place.
Does the guy have to get his hands on the dude for it to be a missed tackle for you guys as you guys try to?
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily. No, if you're in a hole and that ball is and we miss it, however it may be, we feel you're in position to make a tackle or an attempt at a tackle. That's a miss to me. So actually, in some ways, I believe we're a little bit harder than how other people would grade it.
What ways did Jordan and Cody take strides against New Orleans?
There's going to be, in just normal football, you're going to have to meet and greet blocks. Even as a linebacker, you're not always going to be clean, flowing, and scraping over to the football. And they understand that. So their physicality at the point of contact, and then getting off the blocks and still going to clean up and make tackles, those were big improvements. And obviously, what's up, DJ? Some of the pass pickups for Jordan and for Cody were improved too. Obviously, there's still some that we missed and we'll be on top of and make strides. But there was in their overall game, they definitely made some steps.
What did you like in having Ryan Neal playing safety?
Obviously needed to have the opportunity. Played a lot for us last year. He was a little bit behind the 8 ball with the injuries he had in training camp. But obviously, he can play man-to-man. He has good awareness in zones, matching on tight ends and things of that nature. And he can blitz, he can blitz and take his shots, and he's done some nice things there. It was a nice addition to have him back out on the football field and his versatility, so we can continue to build something with him there.
When you take a look at Arizona, they lost 3 running backs on Sunday. So what does that do to how you game plan and what you expect from them?
I believe they are who they are. They're going to still have the emphasis to go and run the football. Their run game, I don't anticipate changing a whole lot. It's still going to run through Kyler, and they have some explosive pieces on the perimeter with Brown and Wendell. So Rondale, I'm sorry. So they have some explosive pieces. I think the offense will stay the same. They'll find the backs that'll work within what they do. So it's going to we have to be ready to adjust and play with the tempo. To be able to play in space is going to be the big deal with this team. It's a different mentality schematically than what we've seen for the first couple of weeks.
You've seen some mobile quarterbacks already, but what about Kyler stands out?
A guy's like a dynamic punt returner, but has a rocket launcher for an arm. He's a special talent. So you got to be ready for him. How you have to play him. It takes great discipline and awareness from the guys up front and even on the back end, because obviously he can extend plays at any given time. So we got to make sure we work well together in the back end and in the front.
We saw Artie playing some at corner last week, and after we'd seen Sidney kind of play some the previous. Where does that quarterback spot sort of stand right now?
Again, like Michael has been doing a good job, but obviously those guys, Artie and Sidney, came into this, as starters, and again, unfortunately, kind of very similar to the deal with Ryan in training camp. The guys are working their way back into things and whatnot, and still can battle and compete in that stuff out in who's playing and repetitions and all that. So they're still in the mix. Everybody's still competing every day.
What should have been your overall assessment of just the D-line through 5 games?
Obviously, not up to the standard of what we want. They know that we've had that discussion overall with them, but there's also things got to do to be able to try to help those guys out too with some things, and then all bringing everything full circle together. So they know we need more. They want more. They know that. So it's a lot of football left to play.
He was saying that some of the plays Uchenna's been able to make have been due to his savvy, knowing when to take shots, stuff like that. What are some of those plays that have been examples?
Oh, man, there's a lot of them. The crash 9 awareness is just his having a feel for what's going on. If a tight end, a guy that's a normal pass receiving tight end, being able to block, and he kind of sits on that guy for tight end screens. That's a veteran awareness of who their personnel is and what guys like to do. Formational awareness when he could take a shot and come under tight end blocks and all, things of that nature. So, and really, he's exceptional as outside linebacker in coverage. He's done really, really well. I still give him a hard time in the Detroit game. That should have been a pick 6, going the other way. So he's done a nice job, really, really good all-around football player.
Denver's 2 fumbles in the goal line, examples of that, and maybe freelancing a little bit into the backfield.
Yeah, that's what for the one that started off initially was Al. To reset the line of scrimmage on that particular play. He knew by design on that he was supposed to come inside in the C gap, but the way that he does it, the power, the physicality, and taking those shots, and he has a great awareness, very similar to Kobe, in the midst of the play as the things are developing, that he has awareness to go for the football when he sees that it's there. For some guys, they're just like, I got to get this guy on the ground, I'm trying to make a tackle. For those guys, the game is slow enough where it's like they see an opportunity, let me go punch it out, let me get a chance to get to the back tip of the ball and rip it out. So he's unique in that way.
Shelby Harris, how's he been in his spot? Maybe more familiar than the other D-linemen in this game.
Yes, more familiar with it, been solid. He's another guy that's been battling with some injuries and things like that and overall health, and just so when we have him, he's done a solid job. But again, he'll be the first one to tell you too, like all of them, we got to get more.
In the event that you don't have Al on Sunday, could Puna play some nose too?
Yeah, Puna's obviously he's got background playing nose in the system, as and you still got Brian Monet. Shelby can play the nose spot in the system as well. So we have some options to be able to make up for the big guy. You can't find Al Woods, but we have some options to try to spell it.
Veteran savvy that Uchenna has. Bruce brings some of that too. Is that the top
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. There's nothing like experience, and that's what you're going through right now with a lot of our younger guys who are playing a lot of snaps. Is you get a little bit of baptism by fire, and then you see the veteran guys like a Bruce, like a Uchenna, like a Quandre, the guys that get out there and they see things happen and they know how to trigger and react to it. Where for a young guy, you don't really quite, you think but you don't trust it, so it makes you a step late or a step and a half late. And in this game, you pay the price for that. You know, so that's definitely something that Bruce adds to us, and the young guys are figuring that out. But you see it coming. Even like the interception that Tariq made, that's a hell of a job. You know, would just be on the rack and trigger to the throw. A lot of young guys, rookies in this league, they're playing off the soft because they're worried about getting ran by. Not that kid. You know, he's ready to challenge routes and whatnot. So those, you got to take the good with the bad, but obviously we got to get a lot more good going right now.
Tariq may be more uniquely equipped to play like that because he's also has 4.2 speed too.
Yeah, there's been a lot of guys that came in this league that run 4.2 that they get ran by like they run 4.8 because they don't trust it. So I think you got to give credit to that. You know, he's a special talent, but he has confidence in his ability. So that's, you know, there's a lot of guys that have been big and fast that came in this league that phase out in their home pretty quickly. That kid trusts it, and he also trusts what he sees, and he's taking, you know, great coaching but applying it to the field as well.
Why Bruce Irvin now as opposed to maybe not 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks from now, or why now signing him now?
Bruce, I think a lot of it could be, you know, I wasn't in the discussions that early on as to where he was health-wise, but, you know, there's things obviously physically we're dealing with within the group and managing guys, you know, so we got to make sure we're kind of ahead of the curve on that. But again, to bring in another veteran experienced player, it always helps, especially when you can find some help and help out the pass rush too.
Anything else? Thank you.
Appreciate it. You guys take care.